First of all, cheers.
Yes.
And, thanks for coming.
L'chaim.
Yeah, l'chaim. So before we begin, I will make a few words in Hebrew, then I will approach to you. אז ברוכים הבאים לפודקאסט סולם החלומות. אנחנו היום, יש לנו כאן אורח מאוד מיוחד מגרמניה. אנחנו מארחים כאן את דניאל לורשר מבורוסיה דורטמונד. ובעצם בהקלטה הזו ספציפית, אני זוכה להגשים עוד חלום שלי. בורוסיה דורטמונד היא בעצם המועדון כדורגל שאני אוהד ממש מילדות. ומבחינתי כל שיתוף פעולה שאני יכול לקדם עם המועדון הזו, זו הגשמת חלום בפני עצמה. ועכשיו גם יש לי את הזכות שיש כאן בעצם שני נציגים מהנהלת המועדון מגרמניה, כאן באולפן שלנו בישראל, והנה גם זה עוד איזשהו חלום קטן אך משמעותי מאוד שיצא לי להגשים. דניאל מגיע לכאן במסגרת ביקור להביע הזדהות וסולידריות עם כל מה שקורה במדינה בתקופה האחרונה. אנחנו נדבר קצת על המועדון עצמו ועל כל מה שהם עושים עבור מדינת ישראל ועבור המלחמה בגזענות ובאלימות. ואחרי זה אנחנו נדבר גם קצת על בירה ועל הגשמת חלומות וגם על חזון ומה מצפה לנו בהמשך. אז דניאל, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So I made a short introduction about you and about the club, but I will let you to do it even deeper. So if you can tell about your history and about your position in the club.
Okay. Wow. Should be the easy answer, of course. Yeah, I'm Daniel. I used to be a supporter of the club my whole life, more or less. Went to the stadium for the first time with my parents back in the 90s, 1994. And was following the club as a supporter, and then in 2013 I was hired by the club and was working as a supporter liaison officer, like engaging with supporters and working with supporters, and especially in between supporters, security officers, the club, and translating each and every perspective. And later on, I took over the corporate responsibility department when it was founded, and we established this was the anti-discrimination program, the sustainability management, and the foundation of Borosia. Mm-hmm. And since 1.5 years now, I'm the spokesperson of the club and the responsible person for the work against discrimination. Mm-hmm. And besides that, I'm running my own non-profit organization that is dealing, it's called What Matters, and is dealing with anti-Semitism prevention and Holocaust remembrance projects and fostering Jewish life.
Mm-hmm. Can you give a few examples about past projects that you did regarding Israel or Jewish history?
Oh, I'm laughing because I told my colleague this morning that sometimes projects are overlapping and it's difficult to get a reflection on it because so many things happened. I would say I can. The easiest way would be to explain a usual program, especially before October 7th, was educational programs on the Holocaust. So we took employees of corporates, of clubs, but also supporter groups. To the memorial sites in Poland. We have a special focus in Auschwitz, but also in Eastern Poland. And we educate starting with the perspective in the local of the local Jewish community in Dortmund, or in the town where we start. And from that point, we go to the place where the deportation went to, and then we bring it to a wider picture. And it's about, especially educating from the past, educating about the Holocaust, but also learning from the past and discuss nowadays society with this in mind. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it changed a bit on October 7th. Because, of course, we were more focusing on anti-Semitism, the rise of anti-Semitism, but also of supporting people from Israel. And I was hosting different groups. One family from Kwoza, where the son was killed, who was a big football and also Borussia Dortmund supporter.
Yeah, Netta Epstein.
Netta Epstein, yes. Yeah. And with the fan club here in Israel, we organized this wonderful group from Kwoha, the youngsters, who came to Dortmund for 5 days. But also our role was to explain about the situation. We, for example, we had information calls with a journalist from the north of Israel, and we invited employees, sponsors, supporters, even musicians to Zoom calls, and gave them first-hand testimony and explanations. In these calls, we also invited families of hostages to explain their situation. Mm-hmm. And the third goal in these calls was not just information, it was also that we found out that there is such a lack of information when it comes to the Middle East and to this, like to October 7th especially, but also then in a wider picture to the Middle East conflict, that mm-hmm. we, for us, it was important to create a room where people can ask questions without the fear, mm-hmm. to understand more. And this was really the goal of these calls, and worked out very well. We addressed several hundred people with that.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Yeah.
And if we put Israel aside,
yeah,
what other anti-discrimination projects you make not related to Israel?
Also a lot, because from my perspective, it's really important to point out that there is no hierarchy when it comes to tackling discrimination and racism and anti-Semitism. And we should, if we address anti-Semitism, we should at the same time address racism. What we did, for example, was a huge, or is still a thing about racism in supporting locals who have an own racist experience and create, or like an own experience in being adapted. One could say so?
Yeah, you can repeat the phrase. Yeah.
Okay. Like to see them as persons and not just as victims, mm-hmm. and to give them the opportunity to talk about it, and in the same time ask ourselves, what can we do to change things? There are workshop formats, for example, that we produce, and it's also against LGBTIQ plus threats, and to support this community. So really, like in a wide perspective. Because what is interesting is that in our programs connected to the Holocaust and to National Socialism, if we talk about a concentration camp, more or less each group that was a victim or like a prisoner within the camp system, each and every minority group is still somehow targeted by discrimination, racism or anti-Semitism. So one could really see this continuation from history to nowadays society. Mm-hmm. If we, for example, talk about Sinti and Roma.
Mm-hmm. After October 7th, maybe 2 or 3 days after the events, the club took a very clear stand against Hamas and the terror attacks, and very clear being sided with Israel. Why?
That's a good question. We already, like, it's not self-honoring, but we, on Saturday, October 7th at 10 a.m., we posted on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Because for us, and this is also what I explained to the people in Germany, in the very first hand, this was a terror attack. And for us as a club, it was not imaginable that something happens in this size where the club is quiet. And we did also statements in the Paris terror attack, in the London terror attack, in other terroristic attacks in France, in Nice was one. The club always did clear statements and made clear where he stands. And this was obvious to do something. And in the same time, I would also see it as a result of the long years of work, that it was not a discussion in should we do something or not. It was more the discussion in what should we do. Mm-hmm. Because it was clear that we will not question the state of Israel and the right of the state of Israel to exist, and that we will not question our empathy for the people. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, we can go into the complex style, but in a very first meaning, it was obvious for us to do something.
How these kind of decisions and statements are being taken internally in the organization? who makes the call?
That's quite easy. In this time, it was the media director. Like maybe I need to explain a bit my October 7th, which was really strange because I was awake and I found out that something is going on, and then I found out that something really serious is going on, and I was kind of shocked, knowing many people here in Israel. I was really kind of shocked that it didn't stop. And I started to write messages to friends and also people I worked with here before. And in a minute where I haven't, my first reaction was thinking about friends. And in the same time when I thought about my friends, the media director of Borosia wrote me a message and said, we should do something. Mm-hmm. And I was answering, yeah, obviously we should do something, but I wasn't able to prepare so far. And then we had a short call and we agreed, and he was talking to 2 persons in the club, I was talking to 2 persons, and then everybody was on board and agreed, and we posted the posting. So it's quite an easy decision in this case. The other decisions most likely were made in the same, more or less the same group of people, which involves communications, marketing, fan relations, the board of the club, of course. But as I said, it was not a question, should we do something? It was more the question in how precise should we be?
Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of risk assessment before making such a statement that it might affect other markets globally or fan bases?
No, and there was a quote from the CEO of Borussia Dortmund 2 years ago in the German Football League magazine, and he said that we will not accept a sponsor that doesn't accept the right of the State of Israel to exist. And I think we are over this point where we need the risk management. It's now for long years we are engaged here and with the people of Israel and with Jews around the world. There is no risk management anymore, and especially with German history in background or in mind, I would say that it's good that it is like that, and that it's not a marketing decision or a business case decision if we should make a clear statement against terrorism, which it is at least.
So how and when it all began, this special relationships with Israel?
That's difficult. I would say that one of the very first connecting points to people in Israel, and luckily I was able to meet him yesterday, was with the film producers of the movie Liga Terezin, a movie about the football games that took part in Terezin and were covered by the National Socialists for propaganda reasons. And this were one of my first contacts in Israel. And due to this connection, I came here in 2015. And then especially after like the long years program in Holocaust education and workshops on anti-Semitism, in 2019, the club decided to donate 1 million euro to Yad Vashem. And out of this, there were several visits of the board of the club to Israel. And I would say it was a progress, and there was not one decision made. It was more like one thing came to the other. And out of this donation to Yad Vashem, which was really important for the club to support Yad Vashem, we get a more deep contact with the fan club here in Israel, and I think out of this it comes.
And beside the educational and anti-discrimination projects with Israel, do you have any personal vision regarding expanding it also to the sportive field?
There was already the plan to play here a friendly match, 2 years ago, which was postponed then. I think it's more difficult now than it was before October 7th. I think not really a plan so far, because and this is what I see, the possibility of sports is even beyond sports. And you don't have to have a game here. But in the same time, for example, we were talking to the Maccabi Netanya. Netanya is the twin city of Dortmund. And we had planned to do a youngsters training, like a football camp, in cooperation of Borussia Dortmund and Maccabi Netanya. Somewhere we need to rediscuss this, of course, but we are still interested to do so. And I think there can be some connection point. And maybe one last very important thing for me, I don't want to have the big thing and afterwards it somehow disappears. For me, it's more important to have an ongoing process and an ongoing connection and on a long-term perspective, because I think it's more reliable and even, at least from my perspective, more important than one big sign.
So you took a flight yesterday to maybe the busiest war zone on Earth. Why did you do that?
The same question many people from my family asked me. Quite easy, really quite easy. I've been here in the last years, I don't know, plenty of times, and I met so many wonderful people. I have so many wonderful how to say it? Like I spent so wonderful time in Israel over the last years, again and again, and meaningful time and moving time and also motivating time, that after October 7th, I had really very fast the feeling that I want to be here and to show solidarity and give somehow my strength that I have from my safe back home, to show support and show solidarity. And this is the main target, and to watch the football game tonight with the fan club in the circumstances, to visit tomorrow with the family of Neta Epstein, Kfar and bring jerseys to his family is very important for me. But in the same time also talk to the people and also to get an own experience of it. I think it's different to talk about the thing or to read about it or to watch videos and stuff, instead of seeing something by yourself and get into talks with the locals here and get an idea of what is the discussion, what are the different perspectives. And it will help me, of course, back home to talk about the situation and about the challenges. And in the same time, hopefully, people take some power out of our visit and see that we see them and that we are with them.
You have a very positive experience with Israel. Do you feel any dissonance or gap from what you experience back home when you hear about Israel or talk about Israel? The other German public?
Totally different.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this is what I heard from the people I brought here. That if you hear about Israel from abroad, like you look at it from a German perspective, let's stay in Germany. And then you come here, you see it totally different. And not just in the meaning of the society, also in the meaning of security. I brought my family last year. And everybody was afraid, like, what is going on in Israel? And then they arrived here and we're like, oh, we are not afraid. And I say, no wonder. It's what I experienced over the last years. And I think it's, of course, it's important to understand the country, to somehow get a feeling of it, and not just the very short narratives that we can find, especially on social media. And
we maybe talked enough about Israel. Let's talk about you a bit. You made quite a way in the club. And usually my podcast is about making dreams come true in the business world.
Yeah.
What's your dreams, your professional dreams?
Oh, wow. It's a good, interesting question. My colleague and me, like Andreas and me, I need to start a bit earlier. 2011, we get to know each other. And we met the first time in the memorial site Auschwitz, because we organized a common education trip for supporters, the first education trip of Borussia Dortmund to Auschwitz. And I was a supporter back then, organizing this trip. He was a historian, or is still a historian. And over the years, we learned that we really can create an impact in using sports or using identity, using points of interest of groups, and bringing them together and discuss these things. Even the topic is really tough.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of interest in it. And about 2.5 years ago, we were sitting together and had a discussion. It's even longer now, it's 3 years, I would say, on our plans, what will we do in the future. And he just finished his PhD. Took a while to finish it. And I was like in the role of, okay, many things are going on. And on the same time, I had the feeling of I want to do something new. It was close to be 10 years with the club. And I want to stay with the club. But in the same time, I saw how many people we can reach out to. And how our concept would work in other fields for corporates and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And we started to think about and to create what matters. And in the very first moment, we involved the club in these plans. So I talked to the board and told them, this is going to happen at one point, and I just want to be transparent and let you know. And then we discovered different options. And I think at the moment, I'm really in a good phase because we established what matters, and now we are running it for 16 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we already are hiring the sixth person. Doing a lot of wonderful projects with corporates, with sports, with policemen, with students, and I need to connect it a bit to Israel because what we saw now after this like long year engagement within Borussia Dortmund, but also with the German Football League, and then now within What Matters, the participants of our programs really had a wonderful perspective on October 7th, perspective of empathy,
mm-hmm.
and a perspective of asking questions, good questions, to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not shouting, like, of course, not all, but the most of them really were showing up at us and said, like, okay, what can we do now? How can we support? And I saw that our work has an impact. And so I would say when it comes to dreams, at the moment it really feels like that we can create an impact and that it's crazy what we are able to do. And sometimes it feels surreal
mm-hmm.
to be in the situation, and sometimes it's really too much. But it's for the good case, and to do this is really like a dream. To know that it's a profit for good or non-profit, and that we look at each other, and that we have so wonderful participants in each and every program is really good to see that one could create an impact.
Amazing. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
For the benefit of all of us. I would really like to express my personal and also behalf of all the Israelis and especially the Israeli community of BFOB fans, your amazing support, and we appreciate it from the deepest place of our heart. And I think that you made us as BFOB fans in Israel extremely proud. We went in the first 2 weeks after October 7th, with every symbol that we can get to be known as the club fans. And it was when almost 90% of other clubs in Europe didn't say anything or just something very neutral. I also can share that I used to be a Liverpool fan myself, and I was very... let's say, mad about how they reacted about this way. And by the way, Neta Epstein was Liverpool fan as well. I took off everything that I have with Liverpool. And so until recently, when everyone asked which football teams I support, I said, first of all, Borussia Dortmund, then Liverpool. And now I have only one club in my heart. So thank you for that, for you in person, and of course for all the Borussia Dortmund community back in Germany, and for the club management. Yeah, thank you. And we decided also to make a very modest homage back for the club, and we brewed a Dortmund export style beer. It will be ready in middle March, and we will name it Todanke. So it's Toda and Danke. And tonight, this evening in the gathering, we will announce it. And we'll be very happy also to ship back to Germany, a few boxes.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And to Danke, I really like.
Yeah. So thank you for coming, and I really enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully that we can do it once more in the future. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.